Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Card Closet for another episode. This episode is going to be a video response for the Cardhobbyist. He has hit 500 subscribers and he's doing a contest, so go check out the Cardhobbyist and get yourself entered if you haven't yet. He's asking us to tell 5 things about ourselves that the others in the YouTube community probably don't know about us. And he's requesting that they not be sports card or sports related. So I'm going to rattle off a few things about myself here and hopefully you find them interesting. So, first fact about myself, I am a FCC licensed disc jockey. And for 4 years, I was a disc jockey in 2 different radio stations. They were college radio stations, so that's how I got my license. And I've always loved music. I actually have some of the things I used to play. My freshman year of college, I had a kaleidoscope show, so I played a lot of alternative, what we called alternative college music, progressive music at the time. So I played a lot of The Cure, the Smiths, the House Martins, the Sugar Cubes. Alice in Chains was just starting to come out, and with that grunge sound, played some of them. Jesus and the Mary Chain, just all those college groups from the early 90s. Played those. That was my first year. Then my second year, I got more into specialized more in electronic music. So, some carryover groups, New Order, love those guys, Erasure, Information Society. I played a lot of Information Society. Lots of other groups too, Anything Box, Boxcar, Transax, any of those electronic groups. A lot of them were from Europe. And that's what I played on my radio show. After graduating from college, I became a stronger Christian, and I started getting into Christian electronic groups like Leodoris, Joy Electric, and then probably my favorite, the Echoing Green. But a lot of those groups are not putting out much content anymore, if any. So now lately I've gotten into, groups that I can find on Pandora or Spotify or YouTube, electronic groups. You've heard me play some of that electronic music in the background of my other videos. So fact number 2 about me, I am the exact same height and weight as Ben Roethlisberger. Exactly the same. You can see the numbers there. So interestingly enough, a few months back, a couple YouTubers were having one of those late night talks, live chats where they had a bunch of YouTubers coming and going, and they were debating who was the tallest YouTuber that does sports card themed channels, and they came up with Ray from Philly, I believe, is who they determined was the tallest at 6'4". And, I was sitting there watching and thinking, well, I'm an inch taller than that, but I'm not going to chime in and say, hey, I'm taller than him. So I don't know if that makes me the tallest or not. I know Michael Myers has said in his channel that he's also 6'5". So Mike, if you're at Nationals next year in 2021, we'll have to stand back to back. Break the tie. Third thing about me is that after college, I had a job. I was on the actuarial track with my math and statistics degree, but I actually took a year off and went to seminary, believing I was being called to be a pastor. And so my wife and I were freshly married, and so we went long ways away to seminary. And after a year of that, I realized that was not the thing for me. But it was actually a good year anyway, because it really drew me closer in my faith walk, and I had a great year. So it was very obvious that I was called to go there that year, and make the Bible and religion forefront of my mind for that year, so that God could get my attention. And ended up being a great year, even though I didn't follow through and become a pastor. Fourth thing about me is that I am a big stats junkie. So I used to, even as a kid, I would make up statistics that I could use the statistics on the back of baseball cards, and I could use them to compare players, and I tried to, make combinations and formulas based on the different columns of stats on the back of the cards. I remember when the 1981 Topps brand came out, they added a lot of new columns of data, like slugging percentage, and lots more stats on the back of those. That's how you got your stats back then, was on the back of baseball cards. And I just loved it when Topps came out with that in 81, because I had a lot more stats at my disposal. And then in college, I was introduced to, or I ended up getting one of these books, not this version, an earlier version. When I would upgrade to the newer versions every year, I would not keep the older ones. But this book in college was just mind-blowing to me. It was year-based and player-based, all the stats. But not all the players were in it. They had to meet certain thresholds to show up in the book. But I remember I went through this whole book front to back using some statistics I had come up with, sabermetrics, if you will, before that was even a term. And I came up with different ways to rate baseball players. And I've actually got a notebook still from college, starting in 1901, when the stats for this book started. And I've got my all-star teams every year based on the statistics that I had come up with. So that was pretty interesting. And then a little later, I was out of college, but this bad boy, 2,800 pages, the Bible of Baseball Stats, came out. And I bought 3 consecutive versions of it. This one has every player that had ever played in a Major League Baseball game, even if they only had one at-bat. So there was no minimum requirement. And I went through here. You could see some highlighting of things that were of interest to me. Some of them will have a bunch of stats written over in the right column or left column if they're on the left page. But I ran that stat, and this one goes all the way back to the beginning of baseball in 1871, the National Association. And so that was an eye-opener for me. This book here was the last edition they ever made of it, and then from then on you have to go to Baseball Reference. And I found that doing the math while looking at a computer screen was not as easy as just doing it from a book. So I kind of have not updated my stats in about 10 years or 12 years maybe. But it would be interesting to carry those forward and see who the best players of all time are according to my metrics that I've come up with. So yeah, big stat nerd. And then fifth thing about me you probably do not know is that I am a singer. I have sung for more weddings, funerals, baptisms, solos in choir. I just sung more than I can even count. A couple of my highlights in singing, I've sung the national anthem at 2 Major League Baseball games. The first one was in, I believe, 1998 in Milwaukee. And I remember that the new stadium was over left field, and you could see it being constructed while we were in the old stadium yet. And a week or two after we sang the national anthem, the big blue, I think they call it, crane, collapsed on the new Milwaukee stadium, and it set them back a long period of time as they had to reconstruct the parts of the stadium that was under construction that were destroyed, and I think somebody even died in that accident, but we were there just a couple weeks prior to that. And then again, it was probably about 2001, I think, that I sang the national anthem again in Minneapolis. They were playing the Texas Rangers, and I got to see, like within 2 feet, A-Rod and Rafael Palmeiro walked by me, and I didn't sing a solo. I was with a group of us, and they walked by as we were getting ready to go on, and they had been underneath hitting in the batting cage, and we watched them for a long time, and then they walked out, and they said, A-Rod says to us as he walks by, "Hi guys," and that was that. But that was pretty cool. So I'm a singer. That's the 5th thing about me. So hopefully you found those things interesting. Thanks, Cardhobbyist, for having a contest. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.